been around for a while, you'll notice that there's a kind of spiritual hit parade. Because most people are basically miserable and are looking for purpose and meaning, then there's a never-ending supply of people who are prepared to provide those things. Religions, spiritual movements, self-help people. They're all primarily concerned with supplying you with some meaning and some purpose to add some kind of colour to your otherwise meaningless life. The need will always be there. I mean, it's a need, it's a mistaken need, because there is no meaning or purpose. Create your own. It's the greatest freedom we have. But, if you want a ready-made, pre-packaged meaning or purpose, then there are plenty of people willing to provide it. At a cost, of course. So, this is the top 5 spiritual hits. I'm going to do it in reverse order. So, number 5. Actually, I'm going to do it in reverse order then. Right at the end, I'm going to tell you about what is at number 462 in the hit parade. Right, well, number 5 in the hit parade, and it's been there a long time, is love and peace. And of course, namaste. You have to say namaste when you talk about love and peace. These two words are a kind of lazy sentiment. It's a belief that if you say these words to yourself, and maybe to other people, that in some way you become, well, kind of elevated. So you could ask a love and peace person, what does love mean? They probably won't have an answer. They might say something like, hugging you or smiling at you, which are nice things. But I think a more sensible definition of love might be you love something when it gives you pleasure. It kind of deflates the whole incense sticks and beads mentality, doesn't it, around this whole thing of what love is. You'd hardly love something if it was giving you pain. So, what is love? Ask your love and peace people what they mean by love. Because all it is really is for them, is a bit of ego fluffing. Oh, I'm a loving person. Oh, really? Are you still a loving person when your friend runs off with your partner and your partner's been cheating you behind your back for the last 3 years? Are you still a loving person then? Probably not. And what is peace? Well, the general idea of peace among these kind of people is it's a kind of stupor. It's easily disturbed by, say, your dog throwing up on your new $5,000 Persian rug that contains hidden meanings in the patterns. So, what is peace? Peace and love, love and peace. What is peace? Is it a kind of stupor? Well, I don't think so. I think peace is the ability to accept. But, that's hard work. It's not some handy-dandy little motto you can print on your forehead. Love and peace. So, love and peace really is nothing much more than a naive expectation that words with no meaning can make a better life. Well, good luck to you if it does. But generally speaking, it doesn't. I've known plenty of love and peace people. Their lives are usually a fucking mess. But they hang on to their love and peace mantra. And maybe that's all they've got to hang on to. so maybe best not to be too cynical about it. So number 4, so that was number 5. Number 4 is optimism. I looked optimism up in the dictionary, my dictionary actually, the dictionary I've written, and it says setting oneself up for disappointment. Emil Swaron said the only people who commit suicide are failed optimists. Why? Because they've set themselves up for such great things that in the end don't come about, that they're so disappointed. They go and attach the rope to the tree outside. So optimism is a process of being unrealistic about the world and your own place in it. If you want to be wealthy or famous or something like that, then you don't really need to do anything. It's all largely down to luck. In fact, the greatest lesson these optimist type people could learn is to chill out a bit and just see if luck delivers them something they can work with. In the main it won't, but they will have saved themselves a whole pile of futile effort. So businesses, fame, money, all that kind of stuff. It's really about being in the right place at the right time and doing the right thing and so on. But you can't control that. But anyway, optimists feel they can. A typical practice of an optimist might be to get up in the morning and say their 5 gratitudes. I'm grateful for having feet. I'm grateful for, breakfast. I'm grateful for having to go and do a shitty job that I hate 5 days a week. I'm grateful for my partner cheating on me. The gratitudes are a willful neglect of the realities of life. The people who are selling optimism, the likes of Tony Robbins and so on, are marketing people. They're not psychologists or people trained in anything particularly other than marketing. They know that most people are miserable, and so they sell a solution to the misery. $5,000 to go to a Tony Robbins extravaganza. And people buy it. They're so desperate. It's a shame really that people are so gullible, so expectant that others have a solution. Nobody has a solution. There are no grand solutions to all of this. Work it out yourself. But I'll get to that later. Right, number 3, we get to some real meat now. In the top 5 spiritual hits, number 3 is enlightenment. The notion that there is a better place if we can just find it, if we can just get that fucking enlightenment that seems so elusive. Why do people seek enlightenment? Well, for the same reason they talk about love and peace or become optimists, because their lives are shit. That's why. If their life wasn't shit, they wouldn't want to do any of this stuff. So, in a way, enlightenment, like the others, is glorified pleasure-seeking. There must be a state somewhere that is way, way better than the shitty life that I've got right now. So, I'll put my trust, my naive trust, in the enlightenment industry, which could be called the escape from reality industry. Here's a hard fact about enlightenment. No one you know is enlightened. I mean, you might have buddies who are on the same trip, trying to become enlightened. But guess what? None of them will be enlightenment. They might have spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on their retreats and gurus and whatever, and nothing has changed. Their life is still shit. And if any of these friends of yours claim to be enlightened, you can be absolutely sure that they are lying. The thing with all of this, the love and peace, the optimism, the enlightenment, is that some of the best marketing people in the world is selling this shit to unsuspecting people like you and me. And so it's hard to counteract that kind of effort on their part to sell us a dream of a life that is better than the crappy life that we're living now. So, love and peace, two meaningless words that sometimes make people feel better. Optimism, setting yourself up for failure. Enlightenment, the search for some better place. Basically, glorified pleasure seeking. Let's get to number 2. A really meaty one is non-duality. Man, has that one raced up the charts. Of course, it's always been around, but I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, it really wasn't so popular, but now it's at number 2 and may become number 1. We'll have to see how number 1 does, but we'll get to that in a moment. So non-duality is basically the idea that there isn't a me and there isn't a you, there's just the one, and you'll hear non-duality people talking about the one ad nauseum. The one is just communicating with itself. There is only one thing, and you and I, who feel like we're sort of separate bags of blood and guts walking around in these bodies, are not really separate bags of blood and guts. We're just the one communicating with itself. There's only one. And when these people talk, it's usually in some lovely setting, maybe some, I don't know, some grand building. I'll get round to the people who are buying into this in a moment, but they're usually reasonably well-heeled people, because non-duality doesn't sound too disrespectful. Well, not disrespectful, but doesn't sound too far-fetched, does it? It's a bit kind of, I don't know, pseudo-science-y, non-duality. But what about the 127 million people who were slaughtered in the last century in revolutions and wars and uprisings and so on? Were those 127 million people just communicating with other people? You see the piles of bodies, photographs of people who died in Auschwitz. Were they just communicating with, was that the one communicating with itself? Does it help us to understand those things by saying, well, this is just the one communicating with itself? And the reports of ISIS, the extreme Muslim people, ISIS monsters drilling holes into the heads of children, is that just the one communicating with itself? Does it help to understand it in that way? I mean, those kind of things are normally not addressed by the non-duality crew. They're normally in some gorgeous residential setting, some beautiful place where they're holding a very expensive non-duality workshop. Or it might be someone in the countryside with the wind blowing through the trees gently and all that. So it's a pretty much one-sided view of life. The basic idea is kind of attractive because it makes us feel like we're not just this bag of blood and bones, walking around thinking we're important. It makes us feel like we're one with everything. But as I say, does it help to feel you're one with everything? If you witness some awful things like the things I've mentioned. I don't think so, really. So the words non-duality will probably have a 5-minute effect. We're all one. Oh yeah, that's nice, isn't it? But the real world, you know, your partner cheating on you, getting stuck in traffic jams, food poisoning, COVID, envy, jealousy, anger, all those things. Well, we don't want to know about those things. You know, these, in fact, one of the main people who's pushing non-duality says, you know, we don't really have to deal with the emotions. We just have to realize that we're one. So it's a nice way of sweeping all the shit under the carpet. The problem is it doesn't stay under the carpet. You probably know that. And it will resurface, but it will resurface after you've spent $20,000 going to very expensive non-duality workshops. So let's get to number 1, which is, can you guess? Mindfulness. Everyone's getting on the bandwagon. Psychologists are getting on the bandwagon. Why? Because mindfulness, and this is the interesting thing about this, you know, top of the pops list here, this list of the 5 hits. As you approach number 1, so these things become more and more respectable. Well, what does that tell you? That the only people who are buying into this are the well-heeled. The people who've got everything apart from happiness and meaning. So, you know, they fucked everybody else over to get their promotions at work, and they've done some horrible job that they hate doing for the last 20 years. And what they need now is some kind of, well, you know, what the fuck was it all about kind of answer. So mindfulness, my wife's psychology magazine, she's a member of the British Psychological Society, and her magazine is, you know, each month it comes, it's full of fucking mindfulness. They're all jumping on it. So the psychologists are jumping on it because it's respectable. The respectable spiritual people are jumping on it. There are business people jumping on it, trying to teach their employees to be mindful. Why? Because they want them to make more fucking money for them. So mindfulness is everywhere. Everyone's getting on the bandwagon. It appeals to all the people who've got pretty much all they need materially, but are totally unhappy. Yeah, ultimately, they've got fairly affluent, crappy lives. Mindfulness is turning into a very kind of polite middle-class pastime. Oh, have you been mindful, Jeremy? Yes, I've been mindful, Penelope. Let's be mindful while we're preparing the vegetables. Let's be mindful while we're going for a walk with the dogs. And it adds a kind of meaning to their otherwise meaningless lives. And I'm being, again, cynical about it all. If it does add some meaning, then fair enough. But the thing that people really need to realize is that we don't need meaning and purpose. If you add meaning and purpose, you are creating a prison for yourself. Anyway, so mindfulness has become a polite middle-class pastime. Do it while you're walking, while you're preparing vegetables, while you're eating, while you're walking in the countryside. I wonder if people are mindful when they're screaming at each other, arguing over money or sex or whatever. You know, money and sex is normally the things that partners argue about. Of course, all of this mindfulness thing will, I predict, let me do a prediction here. I predict that mindfulness will slip from its number one position because people will get sick of it. They'll do it for a week and think, oh fuck, my life's just the same. But, not only is my life shitty, but I'm now aware that it's shitty. Because I'm more mindful of it. Of course, real mindfulness has nothing to do with walking slowly or preparing vegetables. Real mindfulness is the observation of your inner state at any moment. Are you feeling angry or irritated or happy or whatever? And knowing why you're feeling those things. So, I predict that mindfulness will slip from number one position the next time I do one of these, which might be a year or so away. And I think non-duality will have creeped into number one, because it has that kind of pseudo-scientific ring about it. And it promises that we're all one, even though we're not. So let me get to, so we've gone through 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me finish this by going to position number 462 in the charts. It's called understanding stuff. It's the last thing people want to do because they have to do something. And they have to do a bit of work in trying to observe what's going on within them, in other words, a real kind of mindfulness, and understanding why those things are going on within them. But it's never going to be all that popular. It hasn't got a catchy tune to it. So why am I angry? Oh well, who the fuck wants to know that? I'd rather be mindful or non-dual. It's quicker, easier. And this position number 462, I predict that actually understanding stuff will slip further back, because the marketing people are really, really cramming their stuff into the top 100 or 200 places on the spiritual hit charts. Anyway, there you go. If you want to jump on something that's fashionable, I would suggest non-duality or mindfulness. In fact, you could, if you set yourself up as a non-duality or mindfulness guru, you can probably make a pile of money, millionaire by Christmas stuff. So, maybe that's the way you should go.